Let's begin. We are going to focus the practice around sort of exploring this idea of equanimity today. So what I'll get you to do, just for the first posture, just to get into, that's very clairvoyant of you, Laura, to decide to sort of lie across the bolster like that. So we're going to do exactly that, but in a kind of Supta Baddha Konasana position. So we'll get you to use one of your blankets as a pillow to place to the end of your bolster. And if you can, just make sure the kind of sort of smooth side is facing towards you. And it's just going to support the head. And we'll come to sitting with the lower back just right up against the bolster. And then slowly start to recline yourself back and down. And as you know, you're welcome to have all your cozy stuff on, socks and jumpers. And then we'll just take the soles of the feet together and allow the knees to gently drop out to the sides. And then just make any little adjustments you need to. So it might be that you need to shift your shoulders or maybe move your hips a little bit. If it becomes too much on the knees, to have them open wide, maybe you feel like there's a little bit of pressure, you could bring one of those little rolled up towels under your thighs, like that. But it might be that you are just enjoying that kind of sensation of stretch through the inner thigh, and that's also fine. It's about having that little conversation with your body and deciding where you're at in this moment. So once you've sort of arranged yourself, and take as much time as you need to, simply starting to bring the focus onto the breath. Watching the different sensations as you feel the breath move through the body. Maybe a movement of breath first into the rib cage and down into the belly. Maybe experiencing the breath as a kind of rise and fall or ebb and flow. And this mindfulness of breath, this bringing our awareness onto the breath, allows us to sort of tune into the first elements needed to really establish a sense of equanimity in the body. And equanimity can be sort of described as an even-minded state. So that whatever stimulus, external or internal, that arises doesn't grab you as being either pleasant or not pleasant, or a feeling of indifference towards it, but that you can kind of stand in the middle of whatever that feeling or sense is and find a sense of stability and strength and clarity within yourself amongst it. So as the body slows down, You might feel as though the mind gets a little bit busier. And this is a beautiful opportunity to just notice the thoughts that arise, your emotional reactions to those thoughts, and your physical responses. Noticing also sounds that emerge or pull your attention. And if there are any emotional reactions or physical responses in the body to them. And with equanimity, you let those stimuli arise and pass, not needing anything to be different in any way. So if it feels as though that has been a considerable stretch for the inner thighs, you might like to just help draw the knees so that they're pointing up towards the ceiling. And then just for a moment, allow the legs to extend and take a few rounds of breath here, just really allowing the feet to drop out to the sides. Feel maybe a sense of release or spaciousness through the inner thigh after having held that sort of tensioning the muscle in that external rotation position. Notice the breath here as well. Does it change as your shape changes? And then gradually start to bend your knees again so that you can just very gently roll yourself off your bolster and onto your side. And you might just take a little moment there, just resting sort of in this fetal-like position. And then slowly press yourself up through to seated. Okay, so for our next setup, just have your bolster ready in front of you. I'm going to have to turn on the light because it's going to get dark in here. And we're going to bring our that blanket that you set up behind you so that you can elevate your hips a little bit, aren't you? So you'll just come to sitting just to the edge of that little blanket, and then allow your knees to, let's drop them to the left-hand side first. And then you can adjust your cushion if you need to, the support on you, slightly, gives you a slight lift through the hips. And then bring your bolster in nice and close. So you might take the hands onto the bolster. I don't know if you can see so well. These are like this. You might take your hands onto the bolster, or you might rest your forearms down, or you might come all the way down to rest the forehead onto the bolster. Or you could alternatively use your block as a little support. We're taking the one leg into slight external and the opposite into internal rotation. For this one, if at any point it doesn't feel quite right anymore, just release the legs into a wide-legged position, and you could do the same. So you just kind of fold forward. The intention here is a little bit of work into the hips, and maybe a sense that the breath can move a little bit more freely through the back body as you stretch forward. It should feel supportive. In this way, the body can release any of its tension into that support that the ground is offering, that your bolster is offering. Take just a couple more breaths. in this position. And then use the end of your next exhale to gently start to press yourself all the way back up. Good. So we're just gonna bring the knees back through to center. And just take a moment if you need to, just to really slowly allow the knees to drop to the opposite side, and then the opposite side. Feeling into the movement across the back of the pelvis. As you feel the weight shift. From one hip to the opposite. And then allow the knees to drop fully over to the left-hand side. So that we do the other side. Now, it might be that it feels a little bit different. Make sure that the knee feels really safe. And then you can start just with that first sort of point, maybe hands onto the bolster. Maybe that feels perfect and you can relax the head down. Maybe you come down to the forearms, or all the way down. So again here, just noticing into the breath. How its shape changes as your shape changes. As you go, drop deeper into the breath. Kind of become a container to hold the full range of your experience. Feeling and absorbing all that arises with the in-breath and allowing things to dissipate and pass with the out-breath. Taking your last few breaths here. And at the end of your next exhale, using that breath to push your way gently back up through seated. Okay, so you can keep the bolster more or less where it is. And we're going to place one block out in front. And those two little rolled up blankets or towels, you're going to place one at either side of your mat, like little sushi rolls. And we'll come to sort of kneeling over the bolster, and it's a sort of variation on a pigeon. So you'll step your right foot over the bolster, and then just really take your time. You can sit your hip down, and the back knee might even be bent if that feels better, or you could extend it back behind. And really feel the sort of support from your shin, so the pelvis is more supported by this, by the bolster. And then you may need to adjust things, your block, your hands, so the forearms can rest sort of onto the little rolled up blankets, and your forehead might rest down. So just make sure that feels safe and comfortable for your knee. Your front knee. You might need to lift the block for the head up slightly if you feel as though there's a little bit too much downward pressure forward. The back knee should feel pretty comfortable as well. Shouldn't feel like there's any pressure down into it. This might be one of those poses where you might sort of feel maybe some sort of deeper sensation into that outer hip. So just be mindful of it. So it's a little bit less restorative and more prescriptive to that outer hip tightness. And feel free as such to move out of it at any time that feels right for you. Feel free to shift and adjust. But if you are feeling comfortable, then see if you can really go deep into that stillness. very slowly, just begin to sort of release your hands from the supports so you can come onto your forearms. And then gently come back up onto your hands. And sort of lean over to your right hand side so that you can release that leg back and down. And then feel free here, if you like, to take just a downward facing dog. So a really easy downward facing dog, no sort of instruction, just to find a little bit of space. Feel through the left leg and the right leg and any differences or anything of note. And then when you feel ready, just dropping back down to the knees. And we'll repeat the same on the other side. So that left leg will step over. Just be mindful of the knee once again. So we kind of lean and shift where your hip needs to be. And the toe can be, pointing or flexed. And then you're coming down. Right legs pointing behind. So this just gives a little bit of rest for the wrists as well. There's a little space for them to drop downwards. And adjust your block again so that the head is supported, the nose and the mouth can breathe. And then just another couple of deep breaths before gently starting to first press into the the arms, maybe release them off the supports. Press yourself up and away from the ground. And take your time once again just to lean into that opposite hip so that you can kind of bring your leg over. And then maybe a downward dog if that feels nice. Again, just to stretch and lengthen out. Good. And then we're going to simply flip the bolster so that it's vertical along the mat. We'll take just a child's pose here in between what was kind of an active pose. Right? So just bringing it in between the thighs and just sort of lengthen the body out along the bolster. I quite find it nice to sort of wrap my arms under the bolster, and that sort of gives a little bit of a lift to the front end. But you might prefer sort of having one hand on either side, maybe the pressure on the hands doesn't feel good. You can have your head turned to your left or your right, or maybe the forehead resting straight downwards. And here again, just paying attention to feeling of the support underneath you. The sense that the body can yield into that support. Feeling the breath moving into and away from the bolster, expanding into the back body. Maybe a gentle stretch to the lower back. If your head has been turned to one side, just think about turning it to the other. One final deep in breath. Long out breath here. And then gently start to come all the way back up. Okay. So for our next setup, I'm going to give you two options because you both have sort of different tools that you can work with in this one. So it's going to be an inversion and a wide-legged inversion. So I'll show you both ways. You might want to sort of take your blanket and spread it out beside your wall, Tanya, and then Laura, you might want to put a little blanket up against your couch. So for the couch, it's going to be a sort of a supported legs at the wall, so you can come to lying onto the back, a little angle, and you can place the legs up there. And then you sort of bring the soles of the feet together and let the knees sort of drop out wide on your couch. And then Tanya, might be nice, but you could, I don't know if you have a chair, you could try that one as well if you wanted. Otherwise, we don't actually have a wall right here, but you'll come to sitting beside the wall. I've lost you. Here we go. Sitting beside the wall, and then sort of roll over and take the legs up. And if you have a proper wall, so then you could start to take the legs wide. You have that support there from the wall. Now we have a section of the wall here, so. Give that a go. Nice. Take time to adjust the hips here again. Again, there's that little bit of tensioning of the muscles as they're in that sort of stretched position, long position. So just going to the point where it feels good. Yep, you can also do that variation. Beautiful. so very gently beginning to either gather the knees together and then bring them in a little bit so that you can roll to the side first. And just take a little moment there on your side. And then slowly come back to upright. Good. Okay, so for our next one, just need your bolster off to the side of your mat. I'm going to do this because it's getting a little bit dark, so just so you can see the difference between my leggings and the bolster. And then your blanket that's shaped kind of like a pillow, you'll place it up to the top of your mat. And then you'll just come into that kind of lying onto your right hand side and bring that bolster so that it's in between your legs, like sandwiched in between them. And your knee is out from your right ankle, from your hip. Knees are stacked, ankles stacked. And that the ankle is also onto the bolster so that you're not like way down here. But the whole lower section of your leg is supported. And then you can extend that bottom arm out to the side and use the pillow to support the head. So I find that my head drops down quite a lot, and I like a little bit more lift so that my head feels like it's more in line with the rest of the spine. But see which feels better for you. So you could potentially be getting a little stretch through the side of the neck as well, and that might feel nice. Palms are stacked. And then on an in-breath, just gently starting to lift that top arm all the way up. Just bring it as far back as feels comfortable without moving the torso. So the torso stays stable. And then a slow exhale to return it back to its starting point. And again, inhaling, arm lifts. Might find that it goes a little bit further. And exhaling, arm comes back. And this time, when that arm reaches the end range of its possibility, you can just start to open the chest towards the ceiling. And it might be that you turn the head to look towards the ceiling, or maybe even to look towards that arm. Try to keep the hips sort of stacked, so it's just the torso that's open now. So what you can do to transition, simply allow the hips to sort of roll over so that you're onto your back and you're still sort of maintaining the bolster between the thighs. And then you can simply drop the knees over to the opposite side and then bring the hand with you so that we start in that same sort of starting position. And then as you inhale, take the arm up and back just as far as it goes. Slow, bringing it back. And again, in breath to lift it up. And back. And on this last movement, allowing the rest of the torso to sort of turn with the arm. Trying to maintain the hips more or less stacked. And it might be that your back arm doesn't touch the ground or does touch the ground. Maybe the head turns. Maybe it doesn't. And then in a similar way, rolling the knees back through to center here, adjusting the hips, adjusting your head pillow if you need, and then you may be able to just maneuver your bolster around so that you can have minimal effort in sort of placing it then under your knees so that you almost don't have to get up off your back. And then you might find that you need extra layers of blanket or jumpers. Hopefully you can gather them around you. As we settle into our final resting pose, Shavasana. Relax the legs, the hips, relax the whole of your torso, your arms, hands and feet. Relaxing the neck, the head. Relax the jaw, the throat. And feeling a softening into the chest cavity. The abdomen. The internal organs of the pelvis. The deepest courage of all is perhaps not to go anywhere, but to be fully here. Slowly just finding whatever movement feels right for you in this moment, or maybe staying as you are. It's fine. Otherwise, we're going to very gently come back towards seated to close our practice. Let's gather the palms to touch. And just take a moment to sit in the feeling of the breath as it moves through you and for you. Taking a moment for gratitude for your body, for this day, for whatever you feel gratitude for in this moment. We'll gently bow forward as a symbol of gratitude, respect, and honor that we offer outwards towards one another. Namaste.